morning or good afternoon. Today we're going to be discussing domain and range of situations or real world applications. Find these notes on page 21 of your notebook. Number 1, an aerobics class is being offered once a week for 6 weeks. The registration fee is $15 and the cost for each class is $10. Therefore, f of x equals 10x plus 15 is the function that describes this situation. Identify the independent variable and the dependent variable, then identify the domain and range of this situation. So the independent variable is the thing that we get to choose. So in this scenario, you can choose how many classes you will attend. You don't get to choose how much they cost. You'll get to choose how many classes you attend. So x is our independent variable, and it represents the number of classes you attend. Then the dependent variable would be how much it costs you. So as you attend more classes, the cost goes up because you're paying $10 per class. So the cost, what it's going to cost you, it depends on how many classes you attend. So f of x represents the cost of x amount of classes. And then just make sure when you think about your dependent variable in your mind or write it out in a sentence, the cost depends on how many classes you attend. Make sure that sentence makes sense, because if you switch it around and it doesn't make sense, then you probably have identified those incorrectly. So for example, it wouldn't make sense to say the number of classes you attend depends on the cost. Okay. Domain, in this case, because you cannot attend 1.2 classes or 1.3 classes, those would go up in whole number increments, and then there's a maximum amount of 6. This is only going on for 6 weeks. So our domain, since it's x values and those are representing number of classes, domain is 0 through 6. The range now is then our y values, or the cost. What would it cost you to attend 0 classes? Well, you remember you had to pay that $15 registration fee right off the bat before you even attended a class. And then if we used this equation and we took 10 times 0, which is 0, and added 15, we would get 15. All right. Then the cost of one class would be 10 times 1, which is 10, add 15, that'd be 25. And so on. So every time we take another class, that value increases by $10 until you get to 6 classes, which would be 75. So this would be a discrete function. We'd have these distinct points that are not necessarily connected because we can't take like 1.5 classes. Number 2. Giselle is going to rent a scooter for at least 1 hour. The release fee is $45 plus $5 for each hour it is rented. Therefore, f of x equals 5x plus 45 is the function that describes this situation. Identify the independent variable and the dependent variable. Then identify the domain and range. So in this case, she's going to choose how many hours she rents the scooter. So our independent variable is number of hours renting the scooter. That's what x is representing. And then the dependent variable is the cost of x hours. In this case, it didn't say, it says for at least 1 hour. Okay, so that our domain would be x values greater than or equal to 1. It didn't say that there's like a maximum amount of hours, so I don't know if she could rent it for days or not, but we're going to use a domain of x values greater than or equal to 1. And then the range, if she were to rent it for just 1 hour, 5 times 1 would be 5, add 45, and that would cost $50. So if she rents it for that minimum of 1 hour, it's $50, but everything more than that, it's going up by $5 per hour. So f of x is greater than or equal to 50. Now this one, we didn't have just like distinct whole number answers for our domain, because you could rent it for like 1.2 hours or 1 3.5 hours, etc. So our domain in this case is using an inequality rather than a distinct set of X values. Number 3, admission to a carnival is $5 and each ride costs $3. Savannah wants to visit each ride no more than one time. The carnival has a total of 35 rides. The function that represents this situation is f of x equals 3x plus 5. Identify the independent and dependent variable, then identify the domain and range of the situation. So Savannah can choose how many rides she wants to ride. X is the number of rides. The dependent variable is that the cost. The cost will change depending on how many rides. Okay, so the cost depends on how many rides she rides. All right, and then our domain. So look up here, it says she doesn't want to ride them more than once, and there's a total of 45 rides. So she could ride 0, she could ride 1, 2, 3, etc., all the way up to a max of 35. So now she couldn't ride 1.2 rides, so it's not continuous and everything in between. We have just our whole number here, the whole numbers from 0 to 35. I didn't want to write all of them, so this ... and then our last one is the lazy version of that. Okay, so this would be acceptable notation. And then our range, so we have to then calculate what would it cost her to ride 0 rides. So go to this equation, 3 times 0 is 0, add 5, that would be 5. To ride 1 ride, 3 times 1 is 3, add 5 gives you 8, and so on. As we increase every time she rides another ride, the cost goes up by $3, and then that pattern would continue going up by 3 until we get to 35 rides, because she wouldn't want to ride them more than once, she said. So our max ceiling here would be 35 rides. 3 times 35 is 105. Add 5, we get $110.